All right, welcome everyone. We have a couple of days to break down. I try to do these days, time permitting. It's the weekend, and I actually think I was gonna get either of these 2 days to talk about. But I have a little time right here, so I'll break it down. So we're going over Friday, January 11th. I don't know, 12th, and Saturday. What is today? Oh, it is the 12th and 13th. Today's the 14th. Basically, what happened here, we had a ton of snow. We had snow 2 days ago, three, whatever. Bunch of snow fell. You guys don't care the days because snow just keeps falling here nonstop, it seems like. But I thought I wasn't going to be able to get to the gym. And I found out the gym was open. And when the guys at the gym sent me a picture, the courts were empty. So I was like, oh, well, now I want to go to the gym. And so I shoveled a whole bunch of snow to clear the driveway out. And then went over to the gym. But like an idiot, you don't really think that shoveling takes that much out of you, but the total amount of tonnage that you move, just moving the sheer weight of snow, is astounding. And I have a shovel. I don't have a snow plow. I think as long as I can shovel the driveway, I'm going to keep shoveling it. Maybe it's my stubbornness. Maybe it is a physical test of ability. Do I have the physical prowess to actually shovel snow still? And maybe sometimes I regret that decision, but whatever. Shoveled the snow, was kind of tired. Basically, got on the court, shot some hoops because I wanted to shoot some hoops. And the workout was from the athlete team. I'll break it down right here because there's some things I want to talk about. I start off with this shadow shuffle run, this movement flow. And a lot of times when people work on being shifty and side to side, they just like wiggle their shoulders, especially people who don't have much, we call it wiggle or shimmy to them. They just kind of shake their shoulders. The shimmy starts from a transfer of weight at the feet. So these movements are designed, the first one is, to work on that transfer. I call them just basically like shadow boxing or whatever, but this one's a forward shuffle. I'll show you the guys the video here. Side to side, front to back with your weight. Your weight is the key thing here. And then I move into athletic starts. Again, you've seen me talk about these. You've heard about these. I basically just start in an awkward position, stand up, take a couple aggressive steps. What's cool about it is when you watch the movement on camera is the different positions you're challenging yourself to get out of. I just, in my head, was thinking like, oh, this is stand up and sprint. When you do it, you realize your initial hip rotation or torso rotation, it's demanding. And these two movements are great coordinative challenges. If you want to actually get better at moving, you have to move. So often, we just like oversimplify things. Oh, do this lateral thing, do this hop and this skip and this side, whatever. It's just not enough intensity to actually challenge yourself. If you can do the movement without much of an issue, then the movement itself isn't much of an issue. You should probably do some movements that are really easy to do, but you should also do some movements that you have the possibility of failure. Not failure in terms of, oh, I got hurt because it was so intense, but failure in terms of the movement really wasn't done as good as it could have been done because it wasn't done appropriately coordination-wise. You didn't get up quick enough. You didn't take the two best steps. It challenges your ability. After that, I went into an athlete pairing. So this is from the training team. If I'm training my lower body and I want to work on my lower body, let's say a vertical extension pattern, extension meaning ankle, knee, and hip, and some vertical output form. I might do a barbell movement that trains it and then a jumping movement that trains it. So we did a shrug pull because I'm working on just that hip driving the extension pattern. I'll tell you why in a second. Paired with forward jump and touch. These are kind of two similar patterns, a loading of a hip from the horizontal momentum. And we just focus on that movement done really well. So often it's easy to be like, oh, I want to do that movement, this movement, that movement, this movement. I like high variability when I'm training coordination, when I'm training vector loading of the tissues to prepare them, change direction, all that stuff. I like lower variability when it comes to training a specific pattern with the goal of that pattern being maximal output, because I can't tell you what's better. Is a trap bar shrug pull, a pin squat, a rack pull? Which exercise is truly better? I don't really think there's too much. There's probably a lot of overlap if you were to make a Venn diagram of overlap. And so if I know they're all pretty important, I just want to make sure if I'm doing something important, I get the most out of it. Because I know if I try at 80% at something, I'm only going to get 80% of the potential output. And if I think the outputs, when done maximally, are near equal, then the determining factor is going to be my effort. So I did the rack pulls and I did the jump and touch. I didn't, I mean, the ropes were too low, the netting, to jump and touch, so I tried hitting my head on it. And this is really important because what it does, by the way, is it gets me kind of into a flow state, like I talked about earlier, where we said, oh, I want my movements to actually be challenging. Well, I don't always hit my head on it because it's difficult enough. And because it's difficult enough, I try really hard. There's a probability I might succeed and fail. If I just jumped and touched it, I could touch it every single time. That wouldn't challenge my outputs. So if you just do something that's really easy, then you're not going to try really hard. If you do something that's really hard, you can't do it, you're not going to try really hard. You're going to know you're probably going to fail, so you're not going to go as hard as you possibly could. You want something right in that middle ground. And so after that, I moved into trap bar pulls. I was supposed to do pen squats. I want to do trap bar pulls. I like the setup there. I don't like the setup for the pen squats. I like the trap bar pull setup better. Moderately heavy. I think about these as like the effective rep zone for power output. You want something that you can apply maximal force into the bar without you feeling unsafe. So the first couple reps I did a little too heavy because I just couldn't apply as much force. I kind of had a little gradient exposure to my force production. So like I was building into the tension. It was a slow ascent. I want a rapid ascent of force. And so I went a little bit lighter. I knew my back was strong to handle it and I could explode off the floor even though it was a heavier rep. So that's kind of the January 12th day. After that, by the way, I made a snow fort. So cool. This was exhausting. This is probably why I'm kind of tired from the week, because I went outside and I was going to make a snowman. But then I rolled another giant snowball. I didn't want to pick it up, and I put it next to my giant snowball, and I made a snow fort.
So that's the entrance right there. It's got plenty of leg room, enough room to lay down, read a book if I wanted to, do a couple of sit-ups, a couple of push-ups. Fort things, you know, privacy out in the snow. It's always good to have. It's a nice addition to the house.
And if you have an opportunity to have fun, I have a little kid, and and watching him do things that he just enjoys without any judgment of what others might think, because he's so little, is such a envious attribute of a child. And I think so often we don't do those things anymore as we get older. We don't do stuff that we really enjoy. You kind of do things you kind of enjoy that you deem others might find acceptable or normal. Screw it, man. I went and built a snow fort. It's not a great fort. The winds came. Got really windy the other day. Destroyed my fort. Too bad. I thought it was fun to do. We were napping in the house. I didn't have any responsibilities at the moment. I had an hour of free time, so I made a snow fort. Just go and do things that you enjoy without the concern of, oh, you know, is someone going to see me, or is this embarrassing? I mean, life is so short, and so often, you know, talk about social media too. We do things for the sake of approval of others, when others don't even care, nor are they going to message me that they approve of what I did. You have like this self-conscious layer of where you do stuff, but before you do something, you filter it between this, oh, are they going to care about this or not care about this? Is this weird? Is it not weird? Versus it being solely based on your filtration as to whether or not you like it. I've been trying to do more of stuff that I enjoy without the, filtering of what others might think. And that's part of the reason I made my training vlogs, my day in the life stuff, is because it's just me working out. I'm not trying to make a cool post. I'm not trying to think of content that's going to be super, the most infantismally engaging content. Oh, if I wrote a content piece about this, I don't want thinking about content, because if I think about that, I'm constantly thinking about what others want versus what I want. Versus I'm going to make what I want, and I want to share that. And if you guys like it, great. I'm going to try making my content really good. Like, I want to make a cool day in the life video because I like to make the cool day in the life video, but not necessarily make it in a way that someone else would like it. In the same way I make these videos, they probably could be a lot better editing wise and all that fun stuff, but they're not, because I don't want to. I want to do it this way. if that makes sense. So that's a little bit of advice, by the way, for social media goers as well. January 13th, by the way, I'll talk about this one really quick because it was pretty simple. This is, again, I can't, my schedules are all kind of mixed up because of the snow and I can't get in the gym upcoming weeks or coming days. So I want to get some stuff at the house. I ended up doing a kind of pseudo plyometric day. I did some sprints with the Exergenie. So the Exergenie attaches to my rack. I put a harness on and I can sprint in the basement. And I have enough room to get a good acceleration start, which is an awesome blessing. After that, actually not after, but with it, I paired banded split squat isometrics. And for some reason, the bands do me wonders. Way better than actual free weights. And I don't know why. I've always noticed this. I've never understood why with my isometrics with bands, they seem way more intense. I have two guesses. One is because with weights, I can sit there and I can kind of balance it per se because the axis is always vertical in the line of pull. But with bands, the bands will pull you, obviously the vertical pull from gravity, but there's no other weight on the bar. The bands are going to pull you in the direction of their line of pull. So you can kind of mimic this horizontal loading. And when you get in vertical loading, you can almost just like stack the weights upon your bones, essentially, as if you're carrying a yoke. You just kind of are able to load the muscles, but also you get in a very biomechanically efficient position. For some reason, with the bands, the slight deviation in loading, my glutes are so sore today as I write this. And they always have done that, and I've always forget to do them. This is something I'm going to keep myself honest about. I'm going to try and keep doing that there. So that exercise, I really like. The sprints, obviously. And then I did the split squat jumps with the machine I have back there, which I really enjoy. I haven't done those before. Maybe I'm starting to figure out that movement a little bit better. Then also these rapid loading single foot drop catches as well. Fun fact, by the way, for those of you curious who like physics, because people ask me about why do I do this drop loading, this impact loading, these plyometric like movements. Twofold. One, I think the rapid stretch on the muscles and the impact loading is really important for athletic performance, also important for strain lines, whether it's tissue remodeling or bone remodeling, fascia, whatever you want to call it. There is an important theory called strain line hypothesis. Basically, the type of strain and the direction of strain and the rate of strain is what dictates how things adapt. So just doing constant tension lifting is going to develop constant tension-like pathways versus maybe something slightly more elastic. I also think for some of the single leg work, when you have these impact loading, I think the glute medius on the side of your hip is really important, and it's tie-in with the IT band. When you do slow movements, you're not getting that rapid stabilization of the hip, because if you're doing a squat or a single leg, whatever, split squat, you already have that pre-tension on there, you're not forcing a rapid contraction on the hip. So while I do some of those constant tension movements, like the split squat isometric, I think some of those impact-based loading is going to force contracture on the hip, stabilization, which is really important for performance, and what would you call it, like stored elastic energy. Transfer of energy is really important as well. Also, random fact, by the way, for those of you curious, I like physics. I'm a weird kind of physics guy, and I try and do physics problems because I think they're fun, and I'm just kind of messing with stuff. And for some reason, people always think that, like, if you jump off of a 1 meter box, let's say if you jump off a 1 meter box, you hit the ground at 4.42 meters a second. That's the velocity you hit the ground. That's the math on it. You can do the math yourself. Now, when you jump off of a 2 meter box, people assume that you hit the ground at 19.62 meters a second, right? 9.81 times 2. You think it's twice as much, the velocity impact. That's not correct. You actually hit the ground at 6.62 or something meters a second. Why? Because the meters a second acceleration is linear based on time, not height. So if I were to fall for 2 seconds, sure, I'd hit the ground at whatever 9.81 times 2 is. Is that 19.62? Sure, you hit the ground 19.62 meters a second. If you fell for 2 seconds, but you don't fall from 2 seconds from 2 meters. 2 seconds, you fall from much higher distance. Instead, like we think that in our head that it's linear from box to box. That's not the case. It's actually the formula of it is velocity, impact velocity. When you fall from a box height, it's square root of 2 times acceleration, so 9.81 times height, I believe. So it's square rooted. So you actually don't fall from a higher, faster and faster linear fashion. It's actually slightly curvilinear, I believe, if you plot it, the inverse. So it's like, you go 4.42 from 1 meter, from 2 meters it's 6.6 whatever, and from 3 meters, it's so on. So sometimes actually falling from a really high box, because velocity upon impact is going to dictate the impulse required to stop it. Excessively high boxes, they might look really high, but actually not hitting the ground that horrendously fast. So it brings up the question, should I just land on one leg because that offers smaller support? So if I fall from, a 1 meter box and I land on one leg, that's 4.42 meters a second upon one leg, versus I fall off a 2 meter box at 6 point whatever meters a second on both legs. That's a distribution of 3 meters a second per leg. So I actually get more loading off of a 1 meter box off one leg than I do off two off a box that's twice as tall. And I actually get more loading by 25% if it's 3 to 4 relationship. Kind of interesting thought. We kind of ignore physics. We just assume it's linear, and we assume all these things because I don't know why. It's just an easy assumption, and we don't often dive into the intricacies of it. And so at times you might find, tie this all together here, see me doing more impulse-based loading, and I might start adding bands to it to speed me up. I might start adding single leg stuff to it. I just want to share it because I've been chewing that on that idea. I do have some issues with single leg box jumps and drop jumps, I should say, not box jumps, depth jumps, because I don't like the position you always get in. I find it weird with your center of mass. If you run and jump, the foot often contacts in front of your center of mass. When you do a drop jump, you often contact right on it, and it causes some weird loading at times. I've had some issues with my knees and hips from that in the past. Versus a bipedal landing, so 2 feet at the same time, seems to be way more comfortable and way more natural. Also allows for better manipulation of that center of mass because you have a wider support base. Just rambling at this point. Whatever. I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed. As always, take care and stay warm.